All right, great. Thanks for that audiovisual check and the confirmation, everyone. So thanks for taking the time on your day to join us today. We're talking about how to defend your clients against crippling ransomware attacks. We know that this has been coming up more and more often lately, so it's a really important topic. Glad to have you all here. And you'll notice also the Gartner logos on this title slide here. So we were named the 2015 Gartner Cool Vendor in Business Continuity and Disaster Recovery. We were also named a Gartner Visionary in Disaster Recovery as a Service this year in 2016. So that's the Magic Quadrant from Gartner, so very exciting stuff there. Let's go on to the next slide here. You should be seeing all of my contact information here. I want to make sure to get that to you right away so that if you do want to contact me after the presentation, I'm happy to hear from you. You can grab a copy of this in the handout section. So just go to the handouts, grab a copy of the slides. I also included there a really interesting 2016 DRAS Attitudes and Adoption report for you guys, and then a couple other handouts there as well. I think a ransomware survival guide and some other cool things. So lots of information for you guys to grab there. Also, just a few frequently asked questions. I'm always asked, is there going to be a recording of this presentation? So yes, we are recording. I will be posting that up on our website within 24 to 48 hours. That will just be at infoscale.com/webinars. Also, the copy of the slides I just mentioned, that's in the handouts. And then we'd love for you to join the conversation. You can follow us on Twitter at Infoscale. You can also find us on Facebook, on LinkedIn. We would love to hear from you. And then if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please use the question tool there. Just type in throughout the presentation. We are going to have Q&A at the end, of course, but if anything comes up during the presentation, just go ahead and type it in there. All right, so let's take a look at the agenda for today. So first, we are going to talk about the evolution of ransomware, really where it was and then where it is going. Then we're going to talk about some best practices for prevention of ransomware. We'll touch on how to recover from an attack so you know what the best practices of what to do now. And then, of course, you'll have all of those prevention methods as well. The Q&A, I want to point out that during the Q&A, we're also going to do a prize giveaway. So we thought it'd be really fun to make this interactive and hear from you guys a lot. So to be eligible for that giveaway, all you need to do is ask lots of relevant and on-topic questions. So that's about it. So hopefully we get to hear quite a bit from you guys. All right. So with that, let's dive into the first slide here, just what is ransomware? Just a really quick recap of, a quick understanding of what it is and how it's changed over time. So we know that ransomware can take several different forms. It is a type of malware that denies access to a device or files until a ransom's been paid. So it's encrypting a user's files, and then you have to pay a fee to the hacker to regain access, really for your own data. Then where the even bigger problem really sets in is that ransomware encrypts the files on a workstation, but it can travel across your customers' networks. It can encrypt files on the network drives, and really one single infected user can bring an entire department down. Now, here's the evolution of ransomware, and what we've been seeing is, of course, since computers have been in use, programmers have been able to create malicious software. So even earlier than 1986 or 1989, the Creeper virus was one in 1971. So this is a really early example of how quickly malware can spread through systems. And the proliferation of malware just moves at such an alarming rate. If you look at the high-speed encryption between about 2006 and about 2010, what was found in 2007 is that as much malware was produced in that one single year than had been produced in the previous 20 years altogether. So it's pretty scary, and we're going to talk more about CryptoLocker, about Locky, and these that you see in the 2014 to 2016 era, the rise of Bitcoin as cryptocurrency. We'll talk about all of that in just a minute here. But where that leaves us now is that in 2016, there are two types of organizations. There are those that have been breached, and then there are those that have been breached but just don't know it yet. So what category are you guys in, do you think? Okay, let's take a look at a couple of these really great trends in ransomware to give us a good picture of where we're at. In Q1 of 2016, this year, just the first quarter, almost 3,000 new malware modifications were reported. And we know that the ransomware gets activated by that end user. The user lets it in, it starts modifying all the files on that system until a triggered message for a ransom demand pops up, right? So if you get one of those ransom demands, then paying it is going to involve paying an e-currency or cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, and then once the hackers verify that payment, they hopefully will provide the decryptor software. I know in some cases they don't, and then they just increase the ransom. So hopefully they will provide that decryptor software, but then the computer starts the long process of decrypting all of those files. So that's why, looking at the second stat here, the fastest response times until you're back up and running takes about 2 days, and it can take up to 5 days in other cases. So that's why nearly 3/4 of ransomware victims were completely unable to access their data for 2 days. That's that 72% stat there, the second one that you see. Now, also, we know they're getting away with it because of the amount of money paid in ransom. So these numbers are reported from the FBI, and over $200 million has been paid in ransomware in just the first 3 months of this year, in 2016. Now compare that with the total of last year. In all of 2015, $25 million was paid. Now just the first 3 months of 2016, over 200 million. So that's how much this problem is growing. Now, one big problem is you have no idea for weeks or months. About 34% of SMBs were victim to malicious phishing emails in 2015, and that's how we see quite a bit of ransomware cases coming about. And the ransomware works slowly. It starts really with the old files on your system, looking at the last date opened or the last date modified. So it's really working in the background, and then suddenly you receive one of these messages for a ransom demand. So once the files are all encrypted, the hackers then display a screen like this. It's explaining how to pay to unlock the files. And what we saw is, you know, ransoms were maybe in the $300 to $500 range. But that was then. Now fast forward to 2016, now companies are being hit with ransoms in the thousands of dollars. And not only that, but the ransom often increases too. So the ransom increases as the hours pass if you don't respond. You know, a lot of these, if you can see this largely enough on your screen, they have a time limit associated to them. The one in the very bottom that says your computer has been locked in red at the top, it says you have 72 hours to pay the fine. You can also see the amounts of these fines. So one here is the one in grayed out in the background, $300 US. Now, like I mentioned, that was then, because as you can see here, this is from a screenshot from 2013, is just an example of how this has changed. But again, now ransoms are in the thousands of dollars, so it's getting to be a far larger issue than it ever used to be. So here are some of the symptoms to know if your machine's infected. You suddenly can't open normal files. Maybe you have one of those ransom windows open, says you know, one of those alarming messages. It's telling you how to pay to unlock your files. Or maybe your program says there's a countdown until the ransom increases. Or maybe it says you won't be able to decrypt your files unless you pay this amount. And then another big symptom, of course, you're seeing, renamed files, how to decrypt files, decrypt instructions, all of that is going to be a pretty clear indication that your machine's infected. So now that we know that these hackers are primarily infecting machines using those phishing emails, using free software downloads, unpatched programs, in the most common scenario, an attack simply starts when a user opens one of those malicious email attachments, and then they install a virus onto their desktop. And a lot of times, hackers will even send a file with multiple extensions. So they're trying to hide the true type of the file that you're receiving. And so, your customers there, they have however many employees they may have, just one single employee can bring the entire organization down. So just one user needs to open that email attachment or maybe click a link to a software download without verifying authenticity, and that ransomware infection is going to begin. And now there are so many different types of ransomware, different strains in circulation as well. So this is what I mentioned we were going to come back to on that evolution slide. Just a few really big ones to be aware of. So CryptoLocker is one, and CryptoLocker, it targets computers running Windows. This is one that we've seen quite a bit lately, as well as Ransom32, which is a variety of sort of a ransomware as a service, which is really scary because it effectively puts the power to create ransomware into the hands of anyone, regardless of their technical know-how or any technical experience. So it makes that one really dangerous. Ransom32 it's coded completely using JavaScript, so it can be used to target computers not only running Windows like CryptoLocker, but also running Mac OS X and Linux. And there are lots of other strains of ransomware out there as well. Locky in particular is one that we have heard of quite often. So Locky renames all of your important files with the extension .locky. And what we've seen is that this one is really changing the game for several different reasons. But first, it's targeting a worldwide audience. And one of the main routes of infection for Locky has been through spam email campaigns. And what they're doing is disguising them as invoices. So they're just simple Word documents attached to the email containing that malicious macro. And we've seen that in the beginning days of ransomware, hackers were kind of only going after consumers and their individual files and folders. That's why the ransoms were in the $300 to $500 range. But these strains of ransomware increasingly affecting business systems. So Locky is one that is targeting businesses specifically, and it's really upped the ante on extorting payments for that decryption key. What we found is businesses throughout Europe, Japan, New Zealand, Australia, they've all been hit by these massive email spam campaigns. And even closer to home here, businesses are also being targeted with these similar attacks. So recently, Amazon.com was targeted by a phishing campaign. It was estimated that about 30 to 100 million spam messages were sent out, and they were claiming to be Amazon.com shopping order updates. So here's what happens with Locky. It encrypts the files on one workstation, and then it travels across the network and encrypts files on the network drives as well. So it has that network effect. Locky has the ability to encrypt network shares and drives that one workstation may not normally have access to. So we're seeing lots of problems with Locky in particular, and wanted to spend just a little bit more time on that one. But now that we have a good kind of intro understanding of exactly what ransomware is, exactly how it works, let's sort of shift gears and now talk about really, the meat of the presentation here. What can be done to prevent it? What can be done if you get infected tomorrow? So let's take a look at some ransomware best practices and how to work against ransomware. So we know that it is really important to have antivirus, but that's more like a firewall, stopping things from coming in. So If you lack the sophisticated cybersecurity infrastructure for anti-malware to stop things once they're already on your system, then you'll be at risk. And we know that right now none of us are immune to these types of attacks, and everyone has irreplaceable data. So it's really important here. So let's talk about how to effectively and affordably take those proper preventative measures. Now, first, though, I want to do a quick poll. You guys have heard a lot from me, so I'd love to hear from you. So let me launch this first poll. There you go. I'll give everyone a minute to answer that. You should see that come up on your screen here. Ransomware, when it comes to ransomware, which of these is you? A, yes, my client or myself has been a victim of ransomware. So that's me or my customer. B, no, I haven't experienced this type of security breach. Or C, I don't think I'll be affected by ransomware. Okay, we have just about almost everyone who's voted, so let me go ahead and share these results here. All right, so 33%, yes, I've been a victim of ransomware, or my customer has been a victim of ransomware. 67%, no, I haven't experienced this type of security breach. Or are we in the category of I've been infected, but I don't know it yet? Of course, that's the fear, right? And then 0%, obviously, kind of a trick question, right? I don't think I'll be affected by ransomware. So I'm glad that nobody answered that. I would definitely ask about it if you did, just out of curiosity. But for the 33% who said, yes, I've been a victim of ransomware, or maybe one of your customers, would you like to share that story of what happened in the question tool, or did you pay the ransom, or how did you combat that? All right, let me close this down to get back into the presentation here, so hiding the results there. Okay, good. And thanks, everyone, for your participation. I really appreciate you guys being a part of that poll. All right, let me just get back into here. Great. So you should now be seeing the PowerPoint again, avoiding ransomware slide. If you don't, let me know. But I just closed that poll down. All right, so what we're going to talk about next is just a couple of the ways to avoid ransomware. Now, one way is BDR, backup and disaster recovery. It's one way to protect you if you do it right, of course. So here is essentially first, if you do get infected, the first thing you want to do is get the infected machine off the network, right? So you want to stop the malware from spreading. You have to assume that it's going to make use of that internet connection. It's spreading itself to others. So first, you just want to isolate that machine. You want to stop all network communication from spreading. Now, next, you can reset your BIOS time. So in some instances, you can reset the BIOS to stop the clock. It kind of gives you more time to prepare your backups, prepare the recovery. And according to Privacy PC, IT admins don't need to be afraid of that ransomware countdown timer that doubles the ransom if you just set your BIOS time back. So it's going to give you time to sort of calm down and recover your key files and work to eliminate that malware. Now, third, if you're hit with malware, roll back from a previous backup. So having a recent backup will make it easy for you to restore operations as quickly and as painlessly as possible. And it sounds like now some of you guys are chiming in. I'm seeing some of the comments come through about we removed the infected machines, we restored the latest backups, minimal downtime. That was from Joe. Now, Joe, do you know the RPO, the recovery point objective, or the RTO, the recovery time? how you say minimal downtime, but do you know, was it something like an hour? Was it 24 hours? Or do you know what it costs the business? Daniel says, customer got ransomware, paid the ransom via Bitcoin, never got the unlock key. Oh man, Daniel, we hear that story over and over. So I'm glad that you're on this webinar today to kind of get some of these best practices in place, and your customers should not have to worry about that again. Wade says, I've had 2 clients experience it. One just wiped the drive. The other, we saved what we could and we wiped the drive and reloaded. Nobody paid. So I guess the question again is, what was the cost of what was lost? Everyone has irreplaceable data. And so it's a matter of how long could that company go without that data? Most will be put out of business, unfortunately. And I'm seeing lots more comments come through. I'm seeing now we had to rebuild the database. It took 8 days. Wow, that's a long time to be out. Okay, let me come back to a lot of these comments and questions during the Q&A, because I'd love to get through a couple more of these examples on what you guys can put in place for your customers. And then I also have a lot of great information on how you, as a reseller, as an MSP, can make money selling this as well. So I know that that's important to you guys. So, all right, where were we at here? What to do if you get infected? Well, what we see is that right now most of us think they're just options. One's pay the ransom. And since that ransomware, it's flowing over weeks, encrypting files on the computer, having a backup solution in place and also regularly testing those backups to make sure that they're running, that is definitely a critical part of protecting a business from ransomware. Because if you don't have a recent backup, then you likely may have no other choice but to pay that ransom. And like we just saw, it takes time. The one example that just came through, 8 days. So consider, would that downtime be costlier than paying the ransom, or what's my cost per hour of downtime, and how is that really going to affect the business? Okay, so with backups, here are a couple of screenshots from my backup and recovery account with InfraScale. So by default, InfraScale keeps everything. So I want to give this as just one example. Of course, we're going to get to some others. So I have every version ever backed up. I can roll back to any date that I choose. And I can back up with a low RPO, recovery point objective, and low RTO, which is recovery time objective, because I regularly back up my machine. So I just recover my useful files and I keep working. But that's just me myself. Now, for an entire business, let's take a look at the InfraScale dashboard, because my InfraScale account isn't just my own personal backup and recovery software on my machine. Here's a snapshot of my dashboard. So this is a unified management console for all of my data protection and cloud storage. Now here, you can view activity alerts. As the admin, you can view activity alerts for all of the different systems running, access reporting, access monitoring, account usage. Here you can manage retention settings. So everything is really from the dashboard. It doesn't require VPN access. I can control remote deployments. I can use the MSI to deploy anywhere in the world. And we also have account level details. So when ransomware goes through a system, it's modifying every file that it touches. So if it's a file that we're backing up, we're going to recognize it as a changed file. And this is just right in the dashboard backup account. So I have an analytics tab you kind of see in the middle there, last 24 hours, last 30 days, or the calendar view. Hopefully you guys can see that well enough. And what we did is we took these analytics and we created a new monitoring alert. And this alert is called anomaly detection. So if you have a large number of newly modified files, then you want to know, what is happening with my customer there? What's touching all of their data? An average backup of changed files will just continue as normal, but an unusually large backup is going to trigger one of these anomaly alerts to the admin. So in this alert, you kind of know, okay, I need to investigate this, see what could be happening, consider it could be ransomware. or another issue that you need to investigate. So here, let's kind of take a look at this anomaly detection in action. So we're going to look through how to set up your anomaly warning. So to configure the settings, you just go up to the Settings tab, you click on Monitoring, and then in the monitoring page, you see the Enable Anomaly Detection setting just down here in the corner, checkbox there. So here we let you set the threshold. Now, this warning is going to be released when that threshold is passed. So we're calculating a rolling average on the number of modified files over time for each device and each machine that you have in your account. And then if that modified file count surpasses your predetermined threshold, then we release that warning. And then you can open the details here. You can see things like backup duration. You can look at total files processed, how many files were modified. And you can also download the logs if you just click into the Manage Action, and you can investigate there at the file level. So typically we see users, back up maybe 5 to 10 modified files per day because so much work is done online. But anything like 3 to 4 times that is going to be cause for investigation. So what's really important is that nobody has this proactive alerting. None of the BDR solutions out there today have this. Everyone is sort of waiting to get infected and then quickly scrambling, trying to either pay the ransom or roll back to a previous date. And so this proactive alerting is really something that you need to consider. It's something that you need to have. So with that in mind, I want to do one more quick poll here before getting into the next section. When it comes to backup and disaster recovery, which of these is you? So we had everyone participate in the first one, which I really appreciate, and hopefully we can have everyone participate in this one too. A, I can confidently roll back to a previous backup within 15 minutes. B, I wish I had backup and disaster recovery but can't afford it. C, I don't think I'll be affected by ransomware. Great, we have 70% of you have voted so far. We'll give everyone else just a moment to answer. Okay, we've got 80% of you have answered. If you guys haven't answered the poll yet, I'll give you just one more minute here to participate in the poll. We've got 3 options here. A, I can confidently roll back to a previous backup within 15 minutes. B, I wish I had backup and disaster recovery but can't afford it. And C, I still don't think I'll be affected by ransomware. Great. All right, we have the majority of you guys have voted. Let me go ahead and share these results. So far, we have everyone who has responded said, I can confidently roll back to a previous backup within 15 minutes, which is wonderful. And I want to also confirm, are you testing this on a regular basis and know that this is fully functioning and working correctly? Let me know in the question tool there. All right, great. So let's talk about the next section here. Let me bring this screen back up. So we talked about backup. But what if backup simply isn't enough? Because like we saw, you may be able to roll back to one of those previous dates, but if you were to use cloud backup like we saw in the first stat, it could sometimes take 2 to 5 days to recover entire running systems. So it's not just the data, the files and folders, but an entire running system. And what if you just can't wait that amount of time? 2 to 5 days can put a company out of business. So that's where DRaaS comes in, Disaster Recovery as a Service. It lets you quickly fail over your systems. It supports DR to be on demand, and it works like in this scenario. So Here's a situation where you've got some end users that are working, and unknown to them, they're about to experience a ransomware attack. So they get those pop-up screens from the ransomware. But with on-demand failover, you can simply log in from any browser. It could be even a laptop, a tablet, or a smartphone. Just any browser, you can roll back to a previous state and instantly recover a clean version of the entire environment, not just the files and folders. That way, everyone keeps working. That whole process happens in just a couple of seconds. So a closer look at really how this works. Here's just a little bit more detail, a detailed way to really look at it. On the left is the traditional backup flow. So your typical backup, it's going to be your production box, you have your backup server next to it, and then it's copying data to some storage, whether you have, tape drive, on-prem disk, copying to the cloud, any offsite storage. Then when a disaster happens or a ransomware attack, you need to copy that data back out of storage again, and then you have to reconfigure. Of course, all of this takes time, so we're seeing that recovery here can take days. And DRAS is very, very different on the right. We don't want to copy everything twice, moving data back and forth and back again. We simply want to spin up a working environment where the data is. So we can virtualize and create up to 200 machines on the fly and reconstruct the entire data center infrastructure where that data is sitting. So it's really, really important because what we saw earlier is how ransomware has evolved. The primary issue used to be individual data loss, but now ransomware, it spreads over a network. It means that ransomware represents the threat of data loss still, but more importantly, business interruption and downtime. So that's what InfraScale really aims to solve. Our mission is to eradicate downtime and focus on business continuity. So while backup maybe was the best solution when the issue was only data loss, now what we're seeing is that in the next several years, it seems like really backup is going to disappear, and disaster recovery as a service is really a far better solution. Now, here is another just more detailed way to look at this here. Now, with on-demand failover, the cloud failover appliance lets you protect all of your data. So all of your customers' mobile devices, desktops, laptops, physical and virtual servers, everything. And we support over 100 versions of operating systems. So while many of you find yourself maybe in the situation on the left, if you need more space, then you buy another appliance, fill that up as the data grows, buy another appliance, fill that up, and continue this cycle. So if you need more space, that equals more appliance. But on the right, you see really the new way of doing this here. If you had just the last hardware appliance that you ever needed, just a slim rack mount unit that you could send 4 terabytes or 400 terabytes. So utilizing cloud spillover technology and intelligently spilling data over from the device to the cloud is really how you're able to get that in place. And then how do you get the data back on site from the cloud? Well, we move compute to where the data sits. So if you have 500 terabytes of data sitting on the appliance, or you have 500 terabytes of data in the cloud, we're going to move the VMs and run the VMs where that data is. So that's how we boot you up in mere seconds, no matter how much data you have. And really, this is how we're delivering on-demand failover at the price point of most appliance backup solutions. So big difference there as well. And we take security and privacy very, very seriously. So a quick note on encryption is that rather than other solutions, they take raw files and send them to the cloud. InfraScale uses military-grade double-blind encryption to protect data. So this is really the best practice. And we encrypt data locally, in transit, and at rest. So that truly ensures the data is secure. And it allows us to enable compliance with HIPAA, PCI, Safe Harbor, and many others. So lots of other regulations that we can enable compliance for. Now, let me see, switching over to the last section here, is really how you can make money with failover DR as a reseller, as an MSP or VAR. So I did mention, what our mission is, what we're trying to do is eradicate downtime. Now, we can't prevent any of these disasters from occurring. We can't completely prevent ransomware from ever occurring, but what we can do is we can mitigate the pain and disruption. So we can allow every company the ability to quickly and affordably recover from any type of disaster, large or small. Now, here's a look at a specific example so you can actually see the numbers and see exactly what this means for you as a reseller. So in this scenario, this is an 8 terabyte appliance with 4 terabytes of the cloud bolted on, and these are our actual costs here. So the MSRP here, you can either do an outright purchase or a monthly subscription. And all of these services, your cost is listed here along with your margin when you resell it. So you can see that you can easily make a 43% margin with failover DR. Another look here at a second option is incorporating your other managed services. So whatever you may already be selling to your customers, you can simply add in disaster recovery. So you just bake that pricing right into your managed services offering. So depending on whatever your hourly rate may be, that's the point of reference that you can use to calculate this and really see what is going to be your monthly revenue and annual revenue here. So let's look at a specific example by the numbers. Now this is simply just an example with a cost of $80 per hour. So this is just one simple example. I'm using here, say, one customer has 10 workstations and 1 server. So if that hourly rate is $80 and say we do 1 DR test per month, that's going to bring in $730 monthly for one customer, or $8,760 per year for that one customer. All right, hopefully you guys can now see the next slide here is the channel difference. All right, so in addition to that 43% margin, what we do here at InfraScale is we're very partner focused. So we share leads with our partners. We don't do direct sales. We'll bring them right up to that 10-yard line, and then we pair them up with a partner. So we do have our partner as is top of mind at all times. So we also offer a partner resource center for our partners, so you can get templates, you can get how-to videos, you can get lots of information there to help you along with the sale. We offer sales training. We also offer co-marketing events and MDF, market development funds, to our partners. Our technical support is top-notch. We offer a dedicated SE to our partners as soon as they sign on, so we get you up and running smoothly and quickly. And then, of course, also the margins here, I just showed you a very specific example of 43%, but a minimum of 30% margin here. All right, so with all of this in mind that we have talked about so far, I want to bring you to the next steps, because InfraScale gives 2 really great solutions for ransomware and for disaster recovery. You don't have to sacrifice any critical data. Your customers don't have to pay ridiculously high ransoms or lose any profits due to downtime. So since ransomware is really the #1 cybersecurity threat that we're seeing today, we know that on-demand failover is your #1 defense. So I want to offer everyone on the line here a free evaluation unit to test it out for yourself. So if you want to take advantage of that, you can email us, but also you're right here on the line. You can just use that question tool and type in, "I'd love a free eval. I'd love to test it out myself," anything along those lines into that question tool, and we'll get you set up ASAP with that. Okay, from here I'd love to dive into the Q&A. I am going to launch one last quick poll, and at any point during the Q&A, please just reach forward and answer that poll. From here, I'm going to pass it over to Aaron Jordan. He's our senior sales engineer. He's been with the company for years, and he'll be going through all of those technical questions. So now would be a great time to get all of your tough questions in, because we do have that giveaway. So don't forget, we are doing a giveaway at the end of the Q&A to one random participant on the line here. So with that, let me pass it over to Aaron.
Thanks for that, Carla. So guys, thanks for joining us today. And if you do have any technical questions, now's a good time. Just also note that if we don't get to your question at this time, or if you think of something after the fact, you can always schedule a time with your sales rep and get a sales engineer on the phone. I'm usually one of the ones you'll get, and I can answer questions then. And then also, if you take Carla up on this offer for the free eval unit, then when you go ahead and tinker around with it and get it to work in your environment or your client's environment, however you decide to play with that, you will also have a sales engineer assigned to you on that as well. So as you start to go through it, you can learn about it and get trained upon it so that you know the options available to you. With that being said, did anybody have any questions? I'm looking at the questions pane here, and I don't see anything yet, but as soon as you put one in there, I'll be happy to answer it for you.
Wade also said, he said, yes, I use InfraScale. Wade, what is your current situation? I'm curious if you're using the cloud backup or if you're using the disaster recovery.
Oh, so Wade did mention needing to contact support on setting up DRAS. Great, Wade, that actually be nice. And I do recognize you. I actually remember I was one of the sales engineers on your initial call, if that takes me back. But yeah, so you're using the cloud backup. We'd be happy to jump in there and help you with some DR. Just go ahead and you can either contact Carla via the information previously given, or just leave this here and Carla can reach out to you, and we'll get that to the right salesperson and get you on the phone with them as soon as possible. All right, Joe says, we use InfraScale cloud backup for our clients as well. Mr. Jordan has worked with us a number of times. Yes, I remember you, Joe. So I've been around here for 6 years. So it's funny that when we market these, or when we do these webinars towards some of our existing partners to show them the new goodies that we have, the new tools that they have available to them, a lot of them will recognize me, or at least have talked to me at some point. So I should also mention too, since some of you have joined, we have like 6 or 7 sales engineers now. So the company is just exploding in size due to this, ransomware and BDR and how awesome we can bring a machine up in 15 minutes or less. So for those of you, and again, I'm waiting for questions still, but for those of you who have already experienced our direct-to-cloud, imagine that, but also the ability to bring machines online within 15 minutes or less, both locally and in the cloud. If it's a virtual machine from VMware, Hyper-V, and also physical Windows, and we also have a few distributions of Linux available as well. So basically, your range of capabilities have kind of just really skyrocketed here. As we start to grow, you have an opportunity to grow as well.
And Wade had a shout out here for Aaron. Aaron might not read it because he's modest, but I'll read it. He says, yes, Aaron, you helped me. Awesome support. So just wanted to make a point to read that one. Thank you, Wade. We very much appreciate it, and I know Aaron appreciates it as well. Okay,
Any
guys,
questions,
there aren't very many questions coming through. We also have a, sorry, what was that, Aaron?
We can't have been that thorough.
Right. You guys, we need a couple more questions coming through. We do have 80% of you who voted on the poll. So if any of you have not voted on that poll, please do so. We really appreciate the feedback. And there is also going to be a survey, a quick just 3-question survey that pops up as you leave the webinar. We'd love any feedback that you may have, how we can make these better in the future. What might you like to hear that we didn't cover? Is there anything that you were really hoping to hear that you didn't see today? So any of that information would be great as well. And any technical questions on how the system works or what our products might be. Also, any questions specifically on ransomware, and if you've seen anything lately that maybe we didn't cover, any trends that you've seen and have questions about, please let us know. Okay, well, I think what we'll do then is we will end just a few minutes early. We had about 5 to 10 minutes left in the presentation, but we are happy to, give you that 5 to 10 minutes back in your day. Joe says no outstanding questions here. Sorry. Well, Joe, that's a good thing. We're glad that we covered enough today for this webinar. We have webinars each Tuesday and Thursday. Visit our website at infrascale.com/events to sign up for the next webinar. The webinar on Thursday is going to be great. It is our CEO, Ken Shaw, and he's going to be co-presenting with Wayne Sadin, who is on our Infrascale advisory board. He's a financial services technology expert. He's been in the business for 35 years, I believe. I may be getting that wrong, but something along those lines. And they're going to be presenting on Thursday, so that'll be another great one to listen to, and you'll be able to hear from our CEO and founder, and also from that financial services technology expert. So hope to see you guys on Thursday for the next webinar. It'll be the same time, same place. Again, just infrascale.com/events to sign up for that. The replay of this video will be available at infrascale.com/webinars in 24 to 48 hours, and make sure to grab a copy of the slides of this presentation and the other handouts that we provided in the handout section of the software today. So yeah, well, thank you everyone for joining today. We really appreciate you being here. Maybe for the next webinar you'll have some questions prepared that you didn't get answered, and then we'll get to talk again and have some more interactivity. So, all right, thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you, Erin, for being here, and we hope to work with you in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.